you want to speak to us, we'll give you an opportunity later on. City Manager, you've been doing so well tonight. Well, we'll call on the fire chief. We'll give him an opportunity. He's going to lead us in invocation. If you don't want to remain in the room for the invocation, you may leave, and then you will do the pledge.
All right. The gracious Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this day, Lord. We just thank you for the time we're able to be together, Father God. We just ask that you just give us the wisdom and the knowledge that we need, Father, to make the right decisions for the city and in your vision, Father. And we just ask, we just give you all the honor and all the glory in Jesus' precious name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Mayor, I appreciate you letting me say a prayer before I took the phone.
Hey, that's good. That's good.
Too good. Awesome.
I want to welcome Mayor Milligan in the back of the room. Thank you for coming. And it looks like we have everybody back, so we have a quorum. And my screen just went blank. I don't like that. Okay. Anybody have any objections to the agenda? Seeing none, it's been approved by unanimous consent. Anybody want to address the public about tonight's presentations? Anybody out there? I don't see anybody. We're going to move right on to action items. And yeah, Mr. City Manager, tell us how we're going to do this.
Yes, sir. So just to walk you all through it one more time, each of you have heard this already, but we have before us 4 applicants. 3 of the applicants are seeking to serve in all areas of discipline. One is seeking a specific area, which is in the CRA. They have already drawn drawn numbers for the order of their presentation. Mr. Holloway got first, and then the rest of them have graciously stepped into the hallway. So as the staff report reads, we're going to give 7 minutes for them, up to 7 minutes for them to give us a little bit of a presentation on why they feel they are the best candidate to sit as the attorney for whatever discipline or all disciplines they seek. Once that is concluded, the mayor will work his way down whichever way he sees fit with the council members. Each of you will have an opportunity to ask a question. Once the question is asked and the answer is given, the mayor will then give you all an opportunity to follow up to that individual's question before he moves to the next council member. And then he will move to the next. And each of you, once you've each had an opportunity to ask your question, he will then give you an opportunity to ask any that you feel like have left unanswered. We felt like that doing one solid question with follow-ups was probably the best way to get through this, since legal services are pretty defined tasks. So I'll be happy to answer any questions, and then at that point, Mr. Mayor, I would like to go ahead and we'll go ahead and turn it over to our first candidate.
Any questions, comments? Okay.
All right, thank you all.
All right, Mr. Holloway, if you would.
I will keep the clock.
All right.
I don't think I'll be 7 minutes, so that may be good.
It's up to you. You don't have to take 7 minutes.
Yeah, sure. It's been my privilege and honor to serve as your interim city attorney for the last 6 months, and I, of course, have applied to do it on a more permanent basis.
Mr. Holloway, would you move the mic down just a little bit, please?
Sure.
Make sure
I'm
everybody's
sorry.
getting you.
Normally, my wife says I talk too loud.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
But I don't have the teacher voice, so I'm not sure
Okay.
that's going for me. During that time, we've actually confronted a lot of things. I think that Mr. Bolduc came to me on his second day, and we've grown together and learned together, and I've watched him implement a lot of things, and a lot of things that I had a behind-the-scenes involvement in. Before we get to that, I'll tell you a little bit about me. I was born in Fort Walton, raised in Crestview, went to public schools here, elementary, middle, and high school. My parents are from here, lived here. I went to undergrad and law school. That was the only, and then worked about 4 years after law school. That's the only time I've been away. So I'm in my 16th year of practice. All of my practice is civil. I don't do any criminal law. I don't do any family law. And no one would hire me to do that because they probably wouldn't have a good outcome, because I have some inherent biases on things like that. So my first job in law school was with a statewide firm. We did highway and heavy civil litigation. We did a lot of administrative work, and we did real estate practice because that was tangential to what we did for our construction clients. Doing that let me work with cities, counties, and frequently the state on a lot of public contracting, public financing issues. That was when P3, which is public-private partnerships, was at the forefront of state government. The federal government had sort of pushed down from the Federal Highway Administration that was something that they were interested in doing. So we had a lot of opportunities to look at multi-year appropriations, the risk of doing that, gave opinions to our clients, helped to guide them through the process. I've been back here in Crestview since 2007, basically worked for myself. Haven't really worked in a firm of numerous lawyers, although I have had one partner in the past, and we still are very close. I think my proposal to you reflected sort of what the city has historically done, which is to have a rate for attending your meetings, routine consultations. And I also did something else. The trend seems to be that cities and counties like to see a bucket of available time so they know from a budgeting exposure what they can do. I included a flat number. So I included 20 hours in my proposal of outside legal work, outside of meetings, outside of routine consultations. So what that does is it gives me the lowest hourly rate effectively of any of the applicants tonight. But it also reflects the last 6 months of experience I've had. We've never had a month where we didn't do more than 15 hours of work outside of our meetings. We haven't had a month where I've sent you a bill for anything other than what my contract rate was. I had the ability to do that, but I never did. I didn't do that because I take pride in the city. I'm from here, I live here, and I want to learn and grow as the city changes, because there's a lot of things that have changed here recently. So a lot of the things that we've looked at required looking at with a different eye, right? Because, you know, in the meetings earlier, we talked about it's a company, right? You have shareholders. And you have a CEO now, and that's a new thing you never had before. So we're going to work together on that front. You have very talented staff. You've heard it from him. You're going to hear it from me. That's lessened the need to have any outside work for labor specialist or growth management. I think we've gone outside one time for labor advice on a separation issue, and that's it. We've been able to keep everything else in-house, and we intend to continue doing that. I did include in my proposal the ability to go to a labor law expert that happens to be panel counsel to the League of Cities, which is your insurance company for labor law issues. I don't anticipate a great need to do that, but there are some things in labor law that are very specialized, and I wouldn't pretend to tell you that I'm the leading expert on that. I can handle labor law disputes on a daily basis, though. I've done that in my private practice, and I've done it for you for the last 6 months. And I want to continue doing that. I think that's really all I have to talk about myself. I talked about the proposal. It's included. My goal was to give you certainty what you're going to spend every month. The other agencies like the fire district that I represent, they can't stand having a different bill every month. They want to know for their budget, what are they going to spend, what's their expectation, and I want to give you that. So I'm giving you, based on the last 6 months, this is what we're going to spend every month. I'm not going to come back to you with a different bill. That's my 7 minutes.
Okay, well, good. I'm going to start questioning with the Mayor Pro Temp.
Chairman, I talked with our city manager and concerning a couple things. He answered them quite adequately. One of the main questions I asked him was, as far as the legal aspect, I don't think I have to really get into that. We got lawyers, they're certified by the state, so that aspect of it. I'm not a lawyer, so I wouldn't know what legal questions to ask. Anyway, but the question that I talked with our city manager about was, what happens in your absence?
Sure.
So that's my question to you.
Right. When I first came on board as the interim city attorney, I reached out to a friend of mine, Mark Davis. He was the Walton County attorney. And I asked him, I said, look, can you be my resource? Can you help me if I need it? Can you stand in my place if something happens? That relationship exists. It's still there. My intention is I'm not going to miss your meeting. If I do, I will pay Mark to be here in my stead. And if I can't use Mark, I'll use my former partner, Mr. Hardy, who's sat in one time for me in 8 years. That would be out of the money you already paid me. There's no charge for that.
Anybody have a follow-up to Mr. Hayes' question? Okay, Councilman Blocker, you're next.
Jonathan, since you've been here 6 months, what have you learned?
I grossly underestimated the talent of the city staff, and that's on all levels. So what I found is that a lot of things that they come to me for are things they already know how to handle. They already know the answer. They just want somebody to talk it through. So one of the reasons I say that I'm effective and I'm efficient is because I'm practical. Well, that integrates well with my experience in the last 6 months is a lot of times when either Mr. Bolduc or his department heads have come to me they already know the answer. They just want to bounce it around and make sure that they're not making a mistake. That's my job. All I can do for you is explain the risk and let you make a decision, or in this case, department heads. So I would say, number one, that I've learned very talented staff. Number two, as citizens, we do not see sort of the benefits of the Home Rule, Florida Municipal Home Rule Powers Act. Ultimately, that's like your most precious resource. And what you don't see as a citizen is how much attack is coming on, how much preemption, how many new bills get filed to preempt local regulation. It's a diverse state, top to bottom, right? So one size fits all doesn't fit. That's the whole purpose of Home Rule. So I've learned that is a much larger issue than I thought it was. And so it's been interesting to watch that. And of course, I know you guys are all fresh off the League of Cities conference, and I know that was talked about. That's been exciting to learn a little bit more about. It's in a way, it's a professional growth, but I was familiar with it to begin with. I didn't appreciate how significant it is to literally everything you do.
What percentage of your practice, or has there been any?
You doing a follow-up to your own question, is that?
Yeah, I want to do
Okay.
that first, let's
Well-
make sure.
All right.
Have your involvement been with CRA?
For the last 6 months, not a lot, because you have your own CRA lawyer. Prior to that, I really haven't had to go to a CRA. I've looked at some grant
Okay.
applications and helped people with it. I have attended all of your CRA meetings for the last 6 months. And I don't want to take anything away from Ms. Leone. She's an excellent CRA lawyer, and make no mistake about it. But the CRA statute is but one small facet of what we have to look at across the board. And so that's something that's well within our reach. It's easy to learn, it's easy to see, it's easy to research, and there's a wealth of resources available.
Okay, thank you.
Any follow-up to Mr. Blocker's two questions?
I have a follow-up. So if there's any legal issues that maybe Ms. Leone, whoever is the CRA attorney, that you would have to meet up with them and talk to them and be like two people instead of putting it together.
No, my answer is really no on that. My intention is to cover all the CRA needs.
Okay.
Conceivably, there could be some form of conflict, but I haven't seen it.
Okay.
And I'm not aware of it, but I can, on a sort of this esoteric intellectual level, I can see there might be a conflict between the governing board of one and you as the governing board of the other, but, there again, the statute kind of calls that out, and it
Right.
says, the CRA statute in particular says there's no conflict when that happens, so.
I probably didn't state it very well, but you covered me pretty good. Thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am.
Mhm.
Any other follow-ups? Okay, then Councilwoman Brown, you're next.
Well, he kind of already stole my thunder. I was gonna ask him if he had any, experience with the home rule litigation, and if not, how do you feel about home rule?
Yeah,
So,
Right, it's your most precious resource. I mean, it's
It
worth
is.
defending on any level you can. Your front line is gonna be League of Cities. That exists for a reason, you're members of it for a reason. But to the extent, and if we needed to, absolutely, I litigate. It's what I do as a practice. So I'm willing to do it. I wanna do it if we need to. But I would hope you get some benefit from League of Cities being the front line for you.
thank you.
Any follow-up questions to
Just a
that?
follow-up
Go ahead,
comment
Mr. Hayes.
on the home rule. Since I sit on the board of directors with the League of Cities, that's an issue that a local attorney might get involved with. It's rare. Only thing they probably do is advocate. We have an outstanding staff that's been fighting CRA for numerous years and will continue to fight for years. And we have, like when I was working for Exchange, they told us, boy, we'd love for that. We got 20-some lawyers sitting over here doing nothing, so let somebody sue us, but that's a different thing. But the League of Cities is gonna defend anything dealing with home rules where it wouldn't affect, I don't think it would affect you at all unless you wanna go down and advocate for it.
Do
Here's
you
where
have
it
a
would.
question
Follow-up, comment,
or comment? Okay.
yeah.
I have a response to it because
Okay.
it does touch on you, and the number one area of litigation involving home rule is when you enact more stringent regulations than what the
Yeah.
statute provides. So, the statutes generally say, even for home rule statute, it says you can enact something more stringent unless the state legislature has expressly preempted it. So where you see litigation on home rule powers stuff is when you enact more stringent litigation or more stringent requirements that is not expressly preempted. And so they've come up with this concept of like implicit preemption, and it's things like zoning, right? Alcohol, guns, taxation, those are registration of some professions in particular.
Mhm.
Those are where you see litigation on a local level, and I'm perfectly capable and willing to handle those.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Rancich?
Well, most of my questions in this instance are fairly answered or have already been taken, but I will ask, with the size of you or your private firm, what is the workload, and do you foresee any issue with taking on all four of the areas of expertise?
No, I don't see any issues at all. So part of the things that I didn't tell you about is that I'm also an entrepreneur. I've been in the sand and gravel business. I've been in the construction aggregates business. Some businesses are better than others. I've been in the stevedoring business as a business owner. That allowed me to essentially, concentrate my practice on the things that I wanted to do. So for the last 6 months, I've been doing the same thing that I want to do for the next, 6 years. There's no issue there. I'm also pursuing a certification as a mediator so that I can actually stay out of the courtroom a little bit more, which that allows me even more flexibility to be available and be resourceful to you. So from my perspective, in the last 6 months, there's not a single need I couldn't meet. Even if utilization was 3 times what it is, it's something I can still do. It just means I need to work a little harder.
Any follow-up question to that question? Okay, Councilman LaBeouf?
If selected, what do you perceive that could be potential conflict of interest from you carrying out your duties as a city attorney? In other words, what are the commitments or other duties, clients, those sorts of stuff that could potentially be a conflict in your interest here as being as being our city attorney?
Sure. When I started back in February, I had one conflict that we resolved on the staff level. They resolved that conflict, so it went away. Since then, there's really only one thing that I have as a client that would be a conflict or could be a conflict. It's not right now. I represent North Okaloosa Fire District, which is the only other paid fire department in the area. They have mutual aid and auto aid agreements. They handle that on the staff level. I've never been asked for input from the fire district, never been asked for input from the city. That's the only conceivable conflict that I see at this point. Now, I will tell you, I should have mentioned, I also have a real estate brokerage. We did not bid to be the city's real estate broker, and I did that for a reason. I don't think you need one. I can do it. I can do it as a consultant for me, and it's not going to cost you anything.
Any follow-up question to that question? Yeah, go ahead, Councilman Rancich.
I do have one. So with that being the one conflict, is there a mitigation, a way to get around that if it does ever arise?
Yeah, sure. What we would do there is go to the same folks that would sit in for me if we needed to. That's all you had. You just have to have somebody else, or you created what's called a Chinese wall inside your firm. But because I'm a one-man firm, that's not really an issue for me. It's purely going to be looking outside. If we did that, whatever that person had to handle, my expectation, and I think yours too, would be you're going to get the benefit of the 20-hour bargain. So if he's got a 10-hour issue, that's on my nickel.
Thank you. I'm going to just ask one kind of a technical question, I guess. As you know, we have our own little meeting rules, and if we don't cover it, it's covered by Robert's Rules of Order. So during a council meeting, a council member calls for the question, how should that be handled?
Well, so if you call for the question, I need to look at I have a chart that I typically bring with me, and I don't believe I brought it tonight, but I don't believe a calls for the question requires a second. I think it just requires action if debate is closed. So if debate's not closed, I think that's the only time you have to act on it.
All right, thank you. Actually, your first response was probably the best response.
Yeah,
Because you'd
look
have a
at my
reference
checklist.
right there.
Yeah, I typically carry the checklist.
Because you don't get these common things, but when we've had that, people do get confused by it.
Well, you actually
bad.
had you also had similar issue right at the last meeting where your agenda called for comments by mayor and council, and you went ahead and adjourned the meeting. And should you have gotten a motion? Sure, but that's also a privilege motion. So had someone made it, you really don't have a choice but to bang the gavel. So it would have skipped the mayor and council comments anyway, which is why I didn't talk. I speak when spoken to as a general rule. My job is to listen and give advice when asked.
Thank you. Any last minute questions before we let Mr. Holloway go? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity for the last 6 months, and hopefully I can stick around.
take the podium and then we'll, whenever you're ready, let's go.
Mr. Mayor?
Evening.
All right, so the way this process works, as I've already explained to you, is you'll have 7 minutes to kind of tell us about yourself, what makes you well suited for the firm, and then you'll go through a series of questions, and I will keep the clock. So whenever you're ready, begin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. Thank you for this opportunity to make a presentation here to you tonight for the city attorney position. I'm representing myself and my firm, Moore, Hill and Westmoreland, as well as Ray Robinson, who is a partner teaming firm that we have put together a package of services and a proposal. And I want to go over the benefits of that later on in my presentation, but primarily I want to introduce us. First of all, I am Eric Mead. I'm an attorney. I've been practicing since 1996 with Moore Hill and Westmoreland. I've been there since 2002. I've been a lifelong native of the Panhandle area. My family goes back to the Spanish period. I've got family in Defuniak. I've got family in Freeport. I mean, I'm very local. We have with us Heather Ramos, who is our local government guru, and Mr. Tom Wilkes, who is primarily dealing with specifically CRA and development questions, and they'll be able to speak to their points in a portion of my presentation here. We will also have, and we'd intended to have, Alex Andrade, who is an attorney with our firm, an associate who's also our House District 2 representative. But unfortunately, we had not anticipated y'all scheduling this quite so soon, and he was already scheduled for an overseas trip. So he sends his regrets, otherwise he would have been here as well to introduce himself. My background, I was a 10-year Navy veteran, a naval aviator. I've been an attorney since 1996, and I've been practicing here in the Northwest Florida area since 97. I specialize in government contracts, particularly in labor and employment law, in construction, and in areas that deal with land use disputes, due process, civil rights, and things of that nature. I have a lot of experience in dealing with government entities in various situations. In particular, I have represented a county in the Panhandle in a dispute with the United States Air Force. We were successful in getting a significant recovery on a utilities dispute with the Air Force in that setting and took it up to the federal claims on those points. I've handled litigation in federal and state courts in all sorts of labor and employment dispute areas, and those are going to be the typical areas in which my expertise would be used, as well as subbing for Mr. Andrade when he is here, when he is unavailable, either being in legislative session or in areas in which my expertise may be particularly called for those matters on your agenda. And that really gets to the point of the teaming arrangement and why it is beneficial to the city. What it does, myself and Mr. Andrade both live here. We have a lot of knowledge about the background issues in this area and in the communities generally. And therefore, we can save a lot of time and effort in terms of dealing with the background questions that can need to inform some issues that come before the city. And therefore, also then reach into the depth of expertise that we have with the Gray Robinson firm, which is statewide, for any issues that are particularly complex. And some of those issues do come up for the city, as you're well aware, particularly in some of the development areas and regulatory concerns and in funding concerns that the county, the city is concerned with. So in that setting, I would like you to understand that when we put ourselves forward, we are here. My firm is here, and we team with a statewide firm. We can provide the depth that you need on any issue that can come before you. We have the depth of experience, both myself and Mr. Andrade, to be able to flag questions that need to be addressed, but either at our level or at a deeper level, and let you know what you need, and then get that expertise in play for you as quickly and as efficiently as we can. And that is what we pride ourselves on. We've been doing this now in the city of Milton, and I think we've had a very good relationship there. And I think that I'm very comfortable with that representation. And I think that it is a good way for local governments of this scale to look for legal representation. It is the best of all worlds. So I will offer then Mr. Tom Wilkes to speak briefly to his expertise and what his portion of Gray Robinson can offer, and then we'll have Ms. Ron. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric, Mayor and Councilman. I'm Tom Wilkes with the Orlando office of Gray Robinson, and tickled to be here tonight. I have a great deal of experience in local government work, At one point, I was the Orange County attorney for about 12 years. I have worked, but my particular expertise will be working with whatever CRA issues you have and cooperating with Moore, Hull, and Westmoreland. I have approaching 40 years of experience with CRAs, and in particular tax increment financing. When I was at Orange County, we created a CRA. I did all of the documentation to create the CRA. In fact, it was my idea, and I went to the county mayor and the county commissioners and suggested that they create a CRA in the International Drive area. I could speak more about that if you have questions about it. We also did 3 of some of the biggest CRA projects perhaps ever in the state. We did 3 major intersections on Interstate 4. If you're familiar with the road down there in Central Florida, it's the Millennium Mall interchange, the Universal Studios interchange, and the Animal Kingdom interchange. We did the first 2 with the City of Orlando and their CRA, and we did the third one without actually using a CRA, but it was tax increment financing. We did a deal with Walt Disney Corporation actually acting through the Reedy Creek Improvement District. So I can, whatever, and then I also served, when I left Orange County, I served for about 3 years as general counsel to the City of Kissimmee CRA. So I've gone from really big projects to really small projects. I've created a CRA, so I know how all that works. Yours is well established, and I'm well aware of that. We also have bond counsel and disclosure counsel and issuer counsel capabilities in our firm. I myself have done a lot of it, but we have 3 bond counsel lawyers over in our Tampa office. So whatever issues you have with regard to tax increment financing and your community redevelopment agency, you can trust us to handle it. With that, I'm going to let my partner Heather Ramos address you all, and then we can get into the questions.
So Eric is timing, and we're at 6 minutes and 40 seconds. Good evening, Mayor, council members. I am Heather Ramos, and I'm with the Gray Robinson office in Orlando. I practice state and local government law exclusively. I represent the city of Windermere, the town of Howey in the Hills, and lots of little special districts, and I'm here to answer questions because I think we're right at 7 minutes now.
Okay, do you want to have all 3 individuals up there in case one wants to answer
Thank
question?
you, Mayor. Absolutely.
And that way we get the best of both worlds. And our Mayor Pro Temp is going to begin the questioning down here.
Okay, welcome. Oh, sorry. My question, and I don't know which one to address it to.
Just address it, and one of they'll decide who can answer
I
it.
see that everybody does one does this and one does that and one does the other. What I looked at, your main office is in Orlando, and you have a office in Pensacola. Am I looking at that correctly?
Yeah, Moore Hill and Westmoreland is a separate firm. We're teaming with Gray Robinson, whose office will be running this out of Orlando. We are in Pensacola.
Okay.
And we've been there for 50 years.
Okay, so.
But you can think of us basically as one package, really. That's how we present ourselves, and that's how we come together.
Okay, I follow along with that. With that being said, other than telephone conversation for personal contact, how would that be developed with our council if need be? If we need be, who would be sitting right here?
It will be myself or Mr. Andrade. Typically, Mr. Andrade on normal business. If there's special matters that are particular to construction, the labor and employment issues, or complex questions that are really more, that I have a little more expertise with, I would be here for those if those were agenda items that were particular. And if Mr. Andrade is in session, since he is a legislator, I would be here in his place. And I would be available by phone or email or however you wish.
And Alex Andrade serves as the city attorney for the city of Milton. And that's what Eric was saying. We partner together for that one too. And Alex he attends all of the city of Milton meetings except when he's in session, and then Eric attends in his place.
Okay.
Councilman Block?
What sparked your interest in becoming city attorney for Crestview?
Well, I'll tell you, Crestview has done, in my view, an excellent job in capitalizing on place here. The Hub City, name, I think, is an adequate description of where you are in the development of Northwest Florida. I have a long history here, and I've understood how that developed. What you have done in terms of expanding Crestview in an orderly way, I think, is quite impressive for cities of our scale and in this area. I'm very impressed when we began to look at the pro forma for this particular bid, that you run your meetings extremely efficiently. We could just about time all of your meetings down within a very close margin, and that says a lot about how an organization and a government is run. Is whether the meetings get out of control or and so therefore you guys are in a position to really become the hinge of development, and this is a growing part of the state, and we want to be involved in that because there's a lot to be done there. There's a lot of work that needs to be done there, and it is interesting work to do.
Thank you. Any follow-up? Councilman Brown?
I was particularly interested in you because I know where Howey and Hills is, because I used to live in Brooksville, Florida. So that was it's a small town. It's just a lovely town, though. So
Yes, I agree. It is but they could use a little bit of guidance too on how to run their meetings.
Okay. Well, we'll send our mayor down. and
Mayor
have
should
him-
go around and give
have him
some
straighten that.
classes on that.
Yeah. Okay. I have a question about the home rule litigation. Do you guys have any experience with that?
With home rule, what?
Home rule, like if you have any litigation or how you
yes,
feel about
ma'am.
home rule, which is something, yes.
Yes,
He
ma'am.
does.
Home rule.
Yeah.
I have been an advocate about home rule for decades. But we had, in particular, one case at Orange County, and city and county home rule is pretty much identical. They line up with each other. It's one of the few moments when cities and counties just are in absolutely sync with each other. Leave our home rule alone. But yes, we had a particular bond validation case when I was the county attorney, and it was a home rule issue because we got the courts to finally agree that anything that the city could do, the county could do as well. Now, I hope that's not offensive to a city council, but the point was it strengthened home rule because the same pretty much applies for a city wanting to do something. If a county can do it, if it's a proper county function, there's probably also a proper city function within the city's boundaries. And in this bond validation, we got the court to rule that it'd be a little complicated to get into the weeds, but it was a great home rule case, and it's still cited quite a bit. But I have been a real proponent of home rule for a long time, and I got very insistent with my assistant county attorneys that y'all quit looking for statutes that give the county authority to do what it is you're being asked to do. Quit looking for those. Look for a statute that says they can't do it. If they can't do it, then tell the county commissioners and tell the department heads, yes, you can do it, because you've got home rule, and get out of this mindset that you've got to go find an authorizing statute to do that. It took a few months, but they finally started realizing, oh yeah, home rule, we got that. This is 30 years ago, so it was a great experience for me. I really enjoyed it because it got everybody on the right wavelength.
Yeah.
And I can speak, Madam Councilwoman, a little more recently. We were actually, one of my partners, Margaret Stopp, was on the drafting committee for the Pensacola City Charter, which has only come in the last few years. And there's been a lot of adjustment in the city about what the difference is between a charter city and so we've had a lot of direct experience in that, both at the early stage in terms of the provisions and how to select provisions and how those are going to be selected and implemented, and then at the actually trying to make the organization under charter function in the way that it should. I myself am on the city ARB and have been since 2003, and so that's something that we have a lot of experience with.
Thank you.
Any
Appreciate the
follow-up?
answers.
Any follow-up? Yeah, go ahead, Ms. Blocker.
In your litigation cases, what percentage would you say you have been successful in?
Myself?
Totally, firm.
Oh, we're quite successful. We have cases in federal court on things like stormwater, major torts cases, and we got a summary judgment in federal court on, you remember in 2014, there was a class action case that was brought. We had the class action decertified in federal court before it ever got to merits questions. So I mean, we are capable of very sophisticated litigation on our own, even though we're not a large firm in that sense, and have been for the last 50 years. So there's really no issue in litigation that our firm is frightened of at all. We take those on and take all comers. Only thing we don't do is criminal.
Well, you didn't answer my question.
I don't know that I keep score that way, but we are quite successful, and we team with a lot of big firms in defense of those cases, and they respect our role in all of those cases. I would simply say, you know, when Jones Walkers and Wombles and such of the world are willing to hire us to assist them in those cases, we are doing our job, and we are reasonably successful at it. I don't know how to answer a percentage question.
I just want a percentage. Okay.
Councilman Blocker, could I address
We
it?
do better than FSU did this
He's
weekend.
gonna give
I'll
you
say
a
that.
number.
Okay.
Oh.
All right, go ahead.
Could I answer that question? As you may have figured out, the national average for law, the national average across the board is 50% exactly.
Or less.
One side or the other is going to
Yes.
win. But the more important thing for a city attorney is to be looking ahead at the moves on the chessboard, and to be looking for where a city might be headed for something that might erupt into litigation, and to head it off so that you don't even have to go to court. And that's the way that I think a really good city attorney is going to practice. The city attorney is going to be watching what the city's doing, looking ahead 4 or 5 steps on that chessboard and trying to figure out, are they headed for a challenge? Are they headed for a challenge they're not going to be able to win? So it's a little hard to say how many do you win. The better thing is, how many times have you kept us out of litigation? How many times have you gotten us where we want to go without getting challenged, without having litigation erupt? That's really what the role of the city attorney is.
And if I may elaborate on that briefly, and what Ms. Ramos does in terms of really more of the compliance, that's on the front end, okay? When things are coming up on the agenda that need to be looked at in terms of what do we need to be preparing to do, that is where she really is able to make significant efforts to support the city to keep out of those areas of litigation. When matters are happening in front of the council and someone is sitting as city attorney, the advantage of having a litigator and a capable litigator there is we think of that as a devil's advocate. What could I do with this if I was going to try to sue the city? Let's not do that. And that's the job of someone with that background and experience, as opposed to a general counsel experience in this setting. Because as you know, there is no telling what's going to come through the door for the city council to deal with on a weekly or a monthly basis. And so it really can be quite an adventure, as you probably are aware, to deal in local government. But we want to make it as little exciting of an adventure as we can possibly make.
I guess all.
Councilman Rancich?
My question would be, so with your firms or group working as a team, is there going to be a central conduit for say, the city manager or the council or city employees to funnel things through so we don't have, just things lost in translation?
Yes, it will be Mr. Andrade, or will it be me?
I have a follow-up.
Any follow-up? Go ahead.
I met with the representative from Bear Robinson when I very first got started about this, and this was the question I posed to them. To saddle on to Councilman Rensich's question, I would like for you to explain to us, to me, staff, and as the city manager and the city clerk, and for the council, then how does that billing process work? So if I funnel a question through the representative that's here, when do we know what's getting billed how, and that's the part of this conduit I couldn't figure out. What's in the game for Gray Robinson? That's the part I can't.
You will receive a single bill. The fee arrangements are straightforward. It doesn't matter whether our firm or their firm is doing a particular item of work, the bill is going to be charged at the same rate. If a shareholder is doing it, it's going to be $250. If it's an associate, it's going to be $150, and if it's a paralegal, it's $100.
So, Mr. Mayor, may I?
Yeah, go ahead.
So if we're working, and we will be in the next year or so, some complicated land use type questions, that's my background. So I'm gonna wanna have access to the people who are giving the advice so that I can make sure that the relay is the same. But I don't wanna pay 2 different people to be watching me talk. One's gonna have to defend that. Do you understand my?
I totally understand that, and we're very sensitive to that. That's one of the things I despise double billing. If there's an issue that is identified, and you make that known to Mr. Andrade or Mr. D, or me at the time, we will then we will confer or decide, is this something that needs to be done here? Does it need to go to Ray Robinson? Or we will make some combination of that. And then we will let you know who that point of contact is going to be on that particular point. And if it's, we'll stay in the loop by email typically. We'll identify a single lawyer who's gonna identify the work that needs to be done on that issue, and we'll do that work.
And
So
that
you will
individual-
have clarity.
Then that individual will equip and prepare the person sitting here on y'all's time. So if it's a CRA question or a land use question, and you're, I'm sorry, I forgot the names, but you're the individual that's handling it, Tom's handling it, and he answers the complicated components of the question, because we're gonna get some of those in the next couple of years. Then, when we present it here, I'm gonna have Crestview citizens here that are asking questions. I just wanna make sure that the preparation by the individual that's sitting at the dais answering the question is not something that we pay for the question and then we pay for the prep. Do you follow where I'm at?
I follow you.
And I think it's important that you clarify.
What will typically happen in those settings, and this is exactly how it's done in City of Milton. When a matter is referred to Gray Robinson, typically we're going to have a conference to make sure they understand what's going on in the background, because there's always background in these questions, and that's important to them. And some of that will be built, because they need to know that. But the fact that we get that background here is part of what you're saying. Then secondarily, there's typically going to be correspondence or memoranda prepared by either us on a narrow question, or if it's one of the matters that they need to address, they're gonna address that in depth, they're gonna bill for that. We'll read the memo, and beyond reading the memo and understanding what the memo says, their memos are very good, I'll tell you. We will be prepared to speak to those issues, after having done that. I mean, that's what we do.
Okay.
Any follow-ups?
Follow-up, please. So if I can understand correctly, and I'm sorry I don't remember your names, but,
Heather, Tom,
okay.
and Eric.
So if Heather prepares the background work and everything, and she passes it on to you, you're gonna bill us for what you do, right? Then you're gonna pass it on to him, and he's gonna bill us for what he presents.
We're going to be very sensitive to the fact that there will not be a bill for, if I need to brief Eric on something. I mean, we're going to be very careful and conscientious of that, because we already are internally in our firm. That's how we can provide really good work at actually a good cost, because we have folks that are specialized in certain areas that we can tap into, that know the answers, and they can get the answers quickly, and they can brief somebody on it, and then we can get the information to you. So
Okay, I understand what you're saying there, but back to my question. You're gonna bill,
correct.
and then he's gonna present it to the council, and he's gonna bill. Am I correct?
I have stopped billing. Yes, while
Yeah.
he's presenting to the council.
But,
Right.
I mean,
I'm done.
you did your billing by presenting it to them, and then they have to get their review back by billing the city. Then he does it, whatever time he spends with whoever, then he's gonna bill for that portion of it. Am I correct? Am I following this?
Let me see if I can help you. Let's say Ms. Ramos prepares a memo on a funding question, a taxation issue, or some regulatory issue. She's going to do the detailed work along with her associates to prepare all of that. She's going to provide that. That memo will not only be given to us, will be circulated to the city manager, and he'll decide who it needs to go to at that point, whether it's in the package or there's background or whatever he wants to do. And then it's our job, and this is what litigators are paid to do, to make sure we understand those issues in the memo and can help educate and explain whatever you need to know on the points of that question that will then come before you, and to help you field those questions that come from the citizenry or other interested parties. That's the role of, as we see it and as we have played that out, the city of Milton, and it seems to work very effectively. And I encourage the city manager to ask whoever he likes at City of Milton about their experience about this type of arrangement, because it is a teaming arrangement, and it's a little different than what you expect. And I expect these types of questions to come up, and so that's fine.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah, go ahead.
I understand that aspect about that there. Now, suppose, we have a city manager, and I'm looking for him to be well-informed on whatever he puts on the agenda for us. Legal's gonna be here. But then there's time that's spent with making sure he understands all this before he agendas that. Now, who pays for that?
If he has questions that he wants to address that pertain pertain to the memo that Ms. Ramos wrote, he's going to be put in contact directly with Ms. Ramos, who can directly answer his questions. And other than, oh, you need to talk to her, go ahead. I mean, he lets me know if it's a question that I can explain from the memo, I may do that, but that's a phone call. But if it's something that's more involved, we're gonna send him directly to her, because
But-
she's the subject matter expert on
And
this.
you're our boss too.
But you
so-
charge for phone calls, right?
Hmm?
You charge for phone calls?
If it's a substantive matter, typically.
Okay.
If it's scheduling, we don't bill for that.
We wouldn't charge for a phone call to tell the city manager, we suggest you call somebody else to ask him that question. No, you would never say
No, I'm
that.
not talking.
If he's asking me, what does this thing in the memo mean, that's just sort of a general legal term that we don't understand, I'll explain that.
Yeah.
And I'll probably.
And I'm gonna end, Mr. President, but, the thing I'm looking at is, he's not a lawyer, but he represents the city. And, he represents, well, really a city, so he has to look out for the funds of the city. But if he has the phone for legal, and you don't know the answer to that particular thing, then you have to contact somebody else. The thing I'm asking, is he gonna get billed for phoning you?
No.
And
No,
then
no, no.
he has to phone her and he gets billed for
If
that?
I can't answer his question, I can't provide him legal service, and I am not going to bill for it. I'm going to make sure he gets the right member of our team to get that answer. That's my job.
Okay, I'll leave
And
it
Mayor
there.
Pro Tem, one more thing too, we also do not bill to keep others in the loop as well, so if I was to send the city manager an email about something and I'm keeping Eric in the loop, Eric's not gonna bill, to review my email to see what I sent, it's to keep everybody in the loop to understand what's going on. We're very efficient that way.
Okay. That's all, Mr. President.
All right,
Sorry it took so much time.
that's all right. We want to be thorough.
Good questions.
Yeah, Councilman LaBeouf,
Thank
you're
you.
on.
If selected, what do you perceive as a potential conflict of interest in carrying out the duties? For example, other commitments, other clients, an amount of time to devote to us. We're just one small piece of a big pie. How do we feel like we're going to get priority, I guess is what I'm saying.
I think, at least with regard to the Greg Robinson firm as a statewide firm, I don't think that is maybe I'm misunderstanding. If your question is directed more at them, I'll let them respond if you can.
Well, it's a little bit of both. I mean,
Okay,
you're going to be
well,
the face here. You're the face here
I'll speak to that
for the majority.
perspective then. I would be a little concerned if we were to represent two cities in the same county. Because you can have potential questions, and that, I don't know that would be an outright conflict, but I would be sensitive to the questions that would we want to be concerned about taking on that type of representation. Between two different counties, I don't think that's a problem, and in terms of our ability to staff this and the ability to appear and manage this, we don't foresee any problem whatsoever in terms of time. In terms of any other positions or concerns about conflict, if you can elaborate on what may concern you.
Well,
I'll have
beyond
to
just
address.
conflicts, commitments.
Sure.
I mean, if you've got 300 clients or, I'm saying, what kind of a commitment, what kind of a priority, I guess is what I'm looking at, we're gonna have based against your already existing client base or commitments that you might have or, whatever else you're doing.
Well, you're gonna have two attorneys at Moore Hill who are gonna be able to respond to questions, and except when he's in session, and he still answers his email, and he still deals with questions at work. So it's not like he's he's on the moon. And so that's first of all what I would say, is that there is always going to be somebody available to talk to and answer the questions from the city manager, or questions that need to be addressed in special meetings or that kind of thing, because sometimes those things do come up. As far as Gray Robinson, if there's something that you have particularly concerning that, I'm happy to see if we can address that. Have I answered your question?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Any other follow-ups? All right, I have a quick one, very simple, but because you focused on something, and it is pretty symbolic of this council, and that is we work well together, and we don't have too many fistfights.
God win.
But I have seen some horrendous city council meetings, and I'm sure you have too.
They do have.
Yeah, I've seen some, and so my question to you is, during a council meeting, the chair of the meeting either ignores or overrules a point of order, and things get a little feisty over how he handled that. How would you step in and placate that whole situation?
All right, I'll speak because this has actually come up. First of all, to understand how I view the role of the city attorney. City attorney is an attorney. He isn't a parliamentarian unless and until the council wishes to create that role and make that happen. Until then, the presiding officer of the meeting rules from the chair. And if the council wishes to overrule the chair, they are free to do so if they choose. That is the groundwork from which all of this proceeds. So other than trying to counsel peace, I as a lawyer do law. You folks have been elected by your constituents to do politics. And that is an important and vital role to determine what it is that the community wants to do. It isn't the job of the law to determine what people want to do. It is to determine that we must do it in a certain way if we're going to do those things. And that is how I see the relationship between the lawyer's role in advising and the council's role in managing the will and the passion of the political realm, and to try to keep those two things as distinct as possible.
All right, thank you. Now, I think, any other last minute questions? All right, thank you all for coming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No, we don't.
Press on.
All right, Ms. Leary, so, you've heard the instructions, I'll be keeping the time,
Okay.
and, whenever you're ready, if you'll begin. Here you go.
Good evening, Honorable City Council members, Honorable Mayor. My name is Carol Leone. I'm an attorney that has specialized in the field of redevelopment for about 10 years, and in the last 4 years has acted as your Crestview CRA attorney. I started my field of practicing in redevelopment in San Diego, acting as a deputy city attorney for San Diego in their redevelopment unit. And I'm currently acting as a sole practitioner in Milton with the focus on redevelopment. I've given presentations to redevelopment agency staff and elected officials for the Florida Redevelopment Association at their annual conferences, and I've given presentations to local board members, redevelopment board members in Pensacola and Defuniak. I think the question, what you really want to know today, is why have a special CRA attorney? If I can anticipate what your question might be, it would be that. And I think a best way to answer that for you is to give you the history of how I became your Crestview CRA attorney to begin with, for those who have not been here, and to remind those who have. After a FRA, Florida Redevelopment Association presentation that I had given, I was approached by one of your prior directors, Brenda Smith. She had concerns about proper use of CRA funds and wanted to ask questions about procedures, and I talked to her and she asked if I would come and speak before your board, which I did. Talked about different procedural aspects of a CRA, and eventually was hired by your CRA board to act as your CRA attorney from April 2015 to this year. And then the contract expired, and I've been acting on another contract since then. And I also advise, of course, your city CRA director, Elisa Burleson, during her time here as CRA director. She had very little redevelopment experience, and I advised her on the rules for CRAs. Now, your current situation, you have the city clerk who's acting as the CRA director, and with oversight by the city manager. And so they wear two hats, much like the city council, who sits as a CRA board with 2 additional members. They serve both for the CRA and for the city. And it just seems to me that's important to have someone who advises, who's both familiar with and knows what the rules are for CRAs, who has a strict focus on what the CRA is doing separate and apart from the city. Because one thing I've always harped on in my representation is that they're 2 separate, distinct entities. CRA isn't really even a department of the city, it's its own public entity. And I always emphasize that because it has its own rules, it has its own procedures, it has its own purpose. There's a reason for a CRA that a city doesn't have. That's why they created CRAs to begin with. So I think it's important, especially with the increased scrutiny from Tallahassee on CRAs, to have someone advising who is very familiar with the rules and regs regarding CRAs. That's pretty much my pitch to you. I'm happy to answer questions that you might have.
Okay, we're gonna begin with the Mayor Pro Tem.
I have no questions, Pat.
You have no questions? Okay. Councilman Blocker?
I just happen to have one. Ms. Leon, and you knowing what you went through the last 4 years, what is it that you feel with your expertise, your past background involved with this city, that you feel that will be beneficial to the city of Crestview, Florida, to maintain you as our CRA attorney, or attorney, period?
Well, because I have the experience and the knowledge of why CRAs exist, what their focus is, what they're supposed to do, I think I can help advise those that are heading the CRA who may not have that specific training or maybe even not that thought process to help make sure that they're on that path. You know, this Crestview CRA has existed for a long time, but we all know that it's run into roadblocks time and again, either because of who's running it or procedurally why, or it's just been difficult. And consequently, our TIF, our tax increment that we get the funding from, hasn't really increased a lot. But if we got the ball rolling, eventually got the ball rolling, I think we would see the property values go up, and consequently, the money that the CRA has to use increase as well. And then that means the domino effect starts. You can actually do more projects, you have more money to do them with, and as I had said when you were planning, the strategic planning, one of the things you always have to keep in mind with CRA is that, again, totally distinct from a city, is you have a limited time. They're meant to only last for a certain time. You only have 20 years, which is a short time in trying to eliminate blight or do some really important things with respect to helping the community and raising the level of property value. So things have to happen quickly. And you know, I've been passionate about redevelopment. As soon as I knew about it and learned about it back in San Diego, it's a thing that can really help the community. It's something that, as a lawyer, I can get excited about. It's something that helps people instead of harms people. People are happy to be involved in it because it helps the community. So I hope that that can be happening in Crestview. I think that we are really there. We're right on the cusp. There's a lot going on, and I think that we can do some good things in the city of Crestview through the CRA.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Brown?
You know, my question was home rule. How does that affect CRA, or do you think it does?
Well, that is an emphasis from the Florida Redevelopment Association, from the League of Cities. For Crestview, whether home rule is applicable or, I mean, the thing is, it's a closer, redevelopment agencies seem to deal more closely with the community as far as development. So
Right.
maybe that's the way, and certainly when the legislation tries to get in there and start messing with CRA rules and making more regulations, that's a time when we should scream about, we want more home rule because it would interfere with our ability to do our projects. One of the things they were trying to do last year was limit the expenditure of what we could spend the trust funds on, and they really were specifying, you can do this, 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 and then finally at the end they had, or whatever helps you do your redevelopment, and thank goodness that part is in there, and they fought to keep that in, because that basically means we can do what's in our plan, what we've decided is good to do. But home rule is important for CRAs because it allows you to make the decision instead of Tallahassee.
Thank you.
Councilman Rancich?
I think I know everything, or it's already been answered.
Okay, thank you. Councilman LaBeouf?
And selected as a CRA attorney, which is what you're looking for, what other professional commitments or conflicts, or just what else would we take away from your time that you wouldn't have time to be able to devote to us?
That's a great question in that I am a sole practitioner.
Exactly.
And so
There's no
I
bench
have
strength.
to have a focus on Crestview. Now, I will point out that for the last some years that I've been here, I haven't missed a meeting. I think staff can vouch for the fact that I've been available, whether it's a phone call, an email, that they hear back from me really quick. So you could ask them if you had any doubts about that, because I have a very limited clientele. I'm not interested in pursuing all the different types of law. I could go do personal injury cases and probably make a lot of money, but I'm just not compelled to do it. And so if I take on the commitment, I honor it. I'm very responsible, almost to a fault, and I will be there when you need me. I can promise you that.
Thank you.
Any other follow-up questions? I have one for you, Dr. Leone. And you're right, anytime I've called you, you were always right back to me if you didn't answer the phone right away. Question I have for you is, in your opinion, what is the either benefit or detriment to the Crestview CRA expanding its boundaries?
It's probably a benefit because it's certainly, you first, in order to do that, you have to find blight in the area that you want to expand to.
Oh, we have it.
Okay, so that's the first requirement. That's the first thing.
Don't have to look for it, huh?
The benefit could be that you would eventually get more tax increment, assuming you can do something, assuming you can increase that property tax level. It gives you, it often can give you an ability to do more and different types of projects that you couldn't do before, because anything the CRA does has to be within the redevelopment area. So by expanding it, it can help you to do more things in that area. You could get conflict, or some people, controversy, I guess is what I'm really wanting to say, from citizens potentially who don't understand what redevelopment's about. I've seen that happen when you're trying to expand, so that is a potential non-benefit or something you'd have to overcome. But I think the way you do that is by having workshops and really letting the community know how it's going to help them, not hurt them. Most people who resist redevelopment is because they don't understand it. They think their taxes are going up. No, they're not. It's just gonna be made sure to put in a different way that is gonna probably help people who are in the area more so than anything, and it's not gonna hurt anyone. So that's something they need to know, but I think expanding could help, and it would give you a greater base to expand in the redevelopment area.
Thank you. And I think, yeah, go ahead, City Manager.
Mr. Leone, would you kind of expand or explain the rate structure? Because it's different from what we've
It
been
is.
doing, and so I think it's that I would like to understand
Sure.
it, and the board should understand it. So if you can expand on that for us.
And I anticipated you would ask that. One reason why I proposed a flat retainer on this response to the request for qualifications was that it asked for, it had a preference for a flat retainer amount. So I took an average of what I was paid last year, which was about $1,800 a month, and I asked for $1,500. There's less meetings this year with the less scheduled meetings. There will be workshops that would be covered by that retainer. The advantage in having a retainer amount, though, and I hope that it goes this way if you choose me, and you pay a retainer, it would be that it would incentivize staff and board members to contact me without thinking about clock's running, I shouldn't call, I shouldn't email, I shouldn't because it's gonna cost money. If we can eliminate that, that could be a good thing. I think sometimes when you're paying by the hour, that you are always thinking about, like, make it fast, don't call her, don't make the inquiry because it's gonna cost money. So that was how I came up with that, and one way I think it could be beneficial.
So, yeah, follow up.
Go ahead.
So, and that was really what I want, and I like the idea of flat. I think your statement is accurate in that staff, whether it's myself or Ms. Betsy or whomever, will always have less of an apprehension to contact if the bill's already been paid, probably more. So I read this to mean that everything that we do inside of there, unless a specially assigned project is included in the $1,500.
And I really couldn't even, I would have said specifically what that might be, but I didn't know what it would be.
Right.
So that would include meetings, workshops, phone calls, emails.
Yeah, and I don't anticipate special projects, I just wanted to make
Sure.
sure that everybody,
Yeah.
including
I
myself
agree.
back there, understood.
I
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, Dr. Leone, thank you.
Thank you very much.
y'all running them off already?
Okay, guys, I briefed you on the process, so I'll be keeping the time. You have 7 minutes to tell us why you're the best. Start whenever you're comfortable.
I don't know that I am the best. You got some good folks outside, I know. This is Brian Cornell. I know that you know Brian. I am Mike Chesser.
Mr. Chester, would you raise the mic just a little bit, please?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I am Mike Chesser. You all have seen the background that each of us have. And I say that tongue in cheek. I don't know who's the best at what. I tell you, I consider myself to be a pretty good lawyer when I have the kind of team that we have. I think you all and most big clients are at the point where a lawyer is a better lawyer if he's got folks around him who assist when matters happen that it's going to take some help to have. I can tell you, people ask me often whether I can handle what they've got to have and what their matter is. And I found it very easy to say that the best selling point for a lawyer is to look at how long we've been where we've been. You've seen the letters that I've sent to you. I have been general counsel to the Eglin Federal Credit Union for more than 40 years. And if they suspected either that my billing was not was not accurate, or that I had somehow not been their lawyer, instead been someone else's when I pretended to be theirs, I wouldn't be there. I've been the city attorney in Shalimar for more than 40 years. I've been the attorney for the Destin fishing fleet, which is a very significant concern in the city of Destin, for more than 40 years. I was there with them when they started it. I am there today. And the firm that we have now, we've had for quite a long time. The people who are there, I think, are very strong young lawyers, and I think as an older lawyer with experience, it works to have someone who is guiding that team, and to have that team of people is the very best combination that one could possibly have. I will tell you that I expect, if we are chosen to be the city attorney, I will be the city attorney. I will be the one who runs a team, and the team will represent you through our assistant city attorney and through others who do other specific kinds of work. I think we're large enough to handle what you have without being so large that what you have would not be significant to us. Now, that having been said, I suppose I'd best first ask Brian whether there are things he would like to add to what I have said, and if not, to ask you all to ask such questions as you might have from what we have said. Brian, is there anything?
I'm good. I'm here to answer questions.
Then let me tender both of us to answer any questions you all have.
All right, we're gonna start the Mayor Pro Temp Hayes right here.
All right, thank you for looking at this position. Now, Mr. Chelsea, far as representing personally, person sitting in that seat, who will that be?
The
I mean,
person-
are you saying that you're the attorney that would be sitting there during the meetings, or will the young man behind you be the one?
No, as I've said, if the buck stops with me, I'm sitting there. I intend to be there. Now, whether I sit right there or over there depends a lot on what you all want to do. Frankly, I'm not sure I wouldn't be more comfortable sitting over there, but I'd let you all decide that.
Can we hold just a minute?
It's got a Charlie horse, that's it.
Does that answer your question? There are meetings in which someone else would cover, but certainly for an indeterminate period of time, I need to be there. I want to know what's going on because one of us got to drive the boat, and it's got to be me.
You all right, Ms. Brown?
Okay, yeah, I'm okay, yeah. Councilman Blocker, you're on.
Mr. Chester,
Oh, somebody said that, Paul?
Yes, sir.
why do you want to be the city attorney for Crestview?
For a lot of reasons. I want to be the city attorney because I want to introduce the young people in my office to being a city attorney. I myself want to be the city attorney. I want to care more, and I want Crestview to do better. I want it to do well. I mean, that's evident. You've seen the letter I sent to you, that I'd done what I could to try to help the bypass road around Crestview. I did that because I felt strongly about the fact that it was progress for Crestview, not for any other reason. I had not the first client in that, except my interest in making it a better place. I think I'm a good lawyer, and I think it helps for me to want my community to be better, and that's the reason I was doing that.
If I may add to that.
Would you come up to the mic, Brian, please?
I believe it'd be great. As some people know here, I live up off of Auburn Road. I'm not in the city limits. I can't affect what you guys do because I can't vote for you guys at the end of the day. But being an attorney would help get a hand in doing that. Y'all have seen me here before trying to handle issues and help things. And I believe being on the city council would help allow me in an indirect way to assist the city in moving forward.
Any follow-ups?
I think Tim did.
Did you have one?
Yeah, I had a follow-up to the first question.
Oh.
I wasn't clear, will you both be attending the meeting, and will I be paying for both?
Well, no, what we've said is we would propose a lump sum price for us to do those things that we put there,
Right.
regardless of who attends. And as to whether we both attend, I think we both attend some meetings, at least at first. But primarily because I want to make sure that the communication is working. I want to know what's going on here. And if there comes a time when I'm not here, then I need somebody that's close to what's going on so I can understand that.
Sure. And that was the part I wanted, because in the billing, if both are involved, then there's separate billing for each.
Right.
So that's why I was trying to figure out, did the lump sum include two people coming to the meeting?
Yes, it does.
And so the answer is, if you bring two people, it's on your dime.
That's right.
Okay.
All right. Councilwoman Brown?
I'm gonna change up, I've got two questions. The other firm that was here was talking about they didn't think there would be a conflict of interest if they represented two cities in different counties, but you'll be representing two cities in the same county. Do you see that as a conflict of interest?
That's an excellent question. I've never had a conflict. Shalimar's never had a conflict with Crestview. Can't imagine that there would be one.
Okay.
I think more than anything, we got a community of interest between the cities. That's what I expect. If something like that happened, I'd say, I'd really be shocked.
Okay, well, I didn't know if you would see that or not. My other question that I've been asking everybody is, how do you feel about home rule, and do you have any experience in either home rule litigation or?
I think it's unfortunate that the legislature has decided that they're going to invade home rule and to try to tell cities both what they should be doing and that they should be paying for whatever the heck it is the legislature thinks they should be doing. Home rule has worked, and it will work if the legislature will leave cities alone to run their own city, as far as I'm concerned.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay. Councilman Rancich?
I want first off start by saying thank you for coming in and showing
Thank you.
your
Yeah.
interest
I
in this
appreciate being
position.
here.
Appreciate that.
So, as a city council, then, who am I going to be speaking with? Who is the city manager going to be speaking with? Who is the senior staff, or is there going to be a central conduit with your firm that is going to be, making sure there's not Chinese telephone and there's nothing lost in translation?
Again, a good question. My assumption would be that it should be me. That's the way I'd prefer it. Again, as I said, I don't want to find out that there are messages going to this place or that place that never came here and that I never got a chance to deal with or understand or be a part of. I'd rather that question would come here. I'd rather I get to then say to someone else, here is the problem. If you can help solve that problem, please do that. But I want to know the problem. Every one of my clients gets my cell phone. And I seldom have that abused, by the way. They call me when they need to, but unless there's a problem, I don't. And I'd rather hear about it in the middle of the night if it's something that's going to get out of control tomorrow.
All right. Okay. Councilman LaBeouf?
So many of our residents and business people are actively engaged in the city government, and they're accustomed to reaching out to discuss matters directly with the city attorney. And so my question is, selected, how would you handle those situations where a citizen reached right out to you as the city attorney? Or how would you change their expectations that you're not necessarily their city attorney?
Yeah, I got to be careful with that, because the very minute I go giving legal advice to somebody out there and not you, then that legal advice ends up coming back to you or at you or around the back door to you. I prefer to give my advice to you. If a citizen asks me for that advice, typically I would say to them, I am the city attorney, but I give that advice and I've been instructed to do that I am very much more comfortable with that, because otherwise you don't necessarily know what somebody else thinks he knows. And it's really not fair to you, it's not fair to them, and frankly, I prefer not to be giving legal advice to someone else.
Yeah, some of them get pretty insistent, but I understand what you're
Some of them do,
and I think Brian could probably express it with you.
and some of the things we've simply got to do is to have conversations about text messaging and social media and all that kind of stuff, because I know cities that are in some pretty hot water about that sort of thing. And it causes the same kind of problem. That sort of communication, and in fact, I know that there are cities where the various people with the city are answering citizens' questions while the meeting is going on. Also, not a particularly constructive way to conduct a meeting.
Any other questions?
I'll say to you my experience about that sort of thing. I've really been pleasantly surprised at the way these meetings are conducted. You've done a wonderful job with it. I've known cities that are not nearly so courteous. The courtesy you have, the politeness you have to other people on this bench is important, because there's one time when you get to talk to your fellow council member, and that's right here. You don't get to walk out of here and do it over breakfast. And for that reason, the things that need to be talked about right here. And the minute we alienate somebody else up here, the minute it gets really difficult to have a constructive conversation about anything that has to be talked about. That's been my experience.
Thank you for that observation, because we've heard that from somebody else too, that they like the way we conduct meetings. And I know both of you gentlemen, I've heard these questions, they've covered everything. So I'm not going to ask you anything, but thank you for coming this evening.
All right. Well, thanks for letting us come.
We appreciate it. Yeah.
All right, we'll bring them all in.
Yep. Charlie horse.
You okay now?
Yeah, I just.
Okay.
Water.
Stretch it out.
He needs to drink water too. Water.
Again, thank you all for coming. Appreciate that. Very, very good interviews with everybody. What I'd like to do is to have an open discussion between the council members before I call for any action, and that way you can kind of feel where you're all coming from. So I'll start with our Mayor Pro Temp. Any comments you'd like to make about the whole proceedings and where your thoughts?
Okay, I'd like to thank the law firms that have come out and showed interest in there. I think they answered the questions that we were asking. We have concerns. We're not legal people, so I won't even get into asking a legal question. What one thing that may concern me is somebody I can reach out and put my hands on. That to me, that's a contact where I'm sure that everybody would be legally qualified, or they wouldn't be applying for the position. But one of the main points that I'm looking at is I want somebody I can talk face to face. I don't want to talk to them on the phone every time something comes up, and I don't know how others feel. That's not, but that's me personally. So that plays a big part in what I'm looking for in an attorney. That's all, Mr.
All right,
Chairman.
thank you. Councilman Blocker, would you share thoughts?
Yeah, I'm gonna give you some facts. A few months ago, when I knew that our former city attorney was gonna leave us, I said, tell me who in our city would be a good person. I got some names. Some of you here, some of you not. Some of them we want you here. But I said that to say this. I don't have a qualm whatsoever, period, with the action that's been performed by our CRA attorney, our current city attorney. Status quo. But we got to make a decision. I could pick all of you as a team, but I can't pay you. But we want to get the best person, and the people for this city is looking for us to do that. It's an awesome responsibility. And I hope y'all people understand that. You can do things that I can't do, she, him, or whatsoever. But I think that this consensus of this bunch up here can agree we have had superb service out of our current status quo attorneys for the last 6, 8, 10 months. And I'm gonna stand with my status quo.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Brown?
Yeah, I want to thank everybody for coming, and it was really nice to see somebody from the middle of the state. It was a good time for when I lived there. So I am leaning towards somebody that is from here because they know us, and that he is, you know, is our status quo, as Mr. Blocker says. He loves this city, and I'm leaning towards that because he knows us and he loves our city.
Councilman Rancich?
Let me start by thanking everyone from coming to even apply for the position. We much appreciate it. The decision, as Councilman Blocker said, it's difficult. You know, everyone in attendance and applied for it is well more than qualified to fulfill the situation. But this evening I'll be speaking or voting on it based on the feedback I've gotten from the public, the efficiencies of how we are making the new view of Crestview, and what I believe needs to move forward.
Thank you. Councilman LaBeouf?
All right, I too, first off, want to thank all of you for coming. And then second, why'd you make this so hard? I mean, my hope was that after the presentations and the questions, there would obviously be the top and the bottom. I like my colleague over there said, I'd like to hire all of you because I like all of what you had to say. But I can't afford you either.
Yeah.
Mr.
Bolduc's saying no way.
I know the city manager's over there. Anyway, my biggest hurdle that I have to overcome is one versus many. And that's the depth of experience and time of a single person in whatever role versus a team or a group or partnership, whatever you want to call it. Because there's bench strength, obviously, in that, but also towards the individual versus the group, then there's some continuity of time. We know we pick up the phone who we're going to talk to. When you go to a team or a group, you may not always be, because that person may not be the person who, one, picks up the phone, or who may be the expert in that particular area. So that's the dilemma that I'm trying to come to grips with in my own mind. Is it better to have a single, or is it better to have a team with a group? They both have strengths and weaknesses in my mind. And so what I'm trying to come to grips with is which one of those pros and cons outweigh the other. I'm not asking you for your opinion, I'm just saying that's where I'm coming from, is trying to decide which one of those two directions is better to go in. Like I said, I don't know if that helped, but that's that's what I'm trying to come to with.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, let me wrap it up by, again, congratulating all of you for submitting, and thank you for your presentations, and I believe everybody, what they're saying is correct here. It's difficult, but I'm going to call for action, but what I'm going to say ahead of time is that keep in mind, the motion could encompass one person or firm doing everything. The motion could encompass one person doing one function and another firm or person doing another function. I mean, if technically you could have like 3 different firms doing 3 different functions if that were your choice. So be careful how you make your motion, whether you want to have one person or firm doing everything. If you want to split the duties between CRA and city, for instance, some of you can do like that. So any questions on what I'm looking for in terms of a motion?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead, City
If I
Manager.
could just add to that as well. Because of the way the statute is written specifically as it addresses CRA, whatever decision the council makes today would then be taken to the CRA board, and then the board itself would have to affirm it, or if they chose not to, then we may find ourselves back in a situation discussing it again, because the statute gives the authority to hire or not hire a special counsel to that board. So I think that because you all make up the majority of that board, it's beneficial to have that conversation here. But just understand that at the minimum, the affirmation of that will occur at the CRA board meeting on the 9th.
That's a good point. Thank you. Thank you for that. You all understood that,
No
right?
matter what way.
Okay, go ahead, Councilwoman.
I think as what we're trying to do, is, we're streamlining our CRA meetings. I think we just need to streamline into one attorney. That's where I am at on that. So, I don't know how the other council members feel on that, but I think it needs to be just one person.
Any further discussion? Okay, at this point, I'm going to call for action. Someone give me a motion, please.
I move to select Jonathan Holloway as single attorney to represent the city of Crestview in matters pertaining to city attorney, CRA attorney, labor attorney, land use attorney, and anything else that may arise legal matters with the city of Crestview.
Second.
Could I have that?
Thank goodness he writes things down.
Well, no, we have a motion and a second to select Jonathan Holloway as a single attorney to represent the city of Crestview in matters pertaining to city attorney, CRA attorney, labor attorney, land use attorney, and anything else that may arise involving legal matters for the city of Crestview. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of that motion?
Aye.
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 And all those opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And so it looks as though we've selected Mr. Holloway to be the city attorney and represent us in all matters.
As I said earlier, we'll bring that subject before the CRA board also for confirmation.
Okay. All right, understand that. Okay, congratulations, Mr. Holloway. Congratulations again for all of you coming. We appreciate that. And at this time, if anybody would like to make any comments from the audience to the city council, now would be the opportunity to do so. Go ahead, Mr. Holloway.
I want to thank you all for the privilege to continue, and I hope to serve you well, and I am available, as you know. And I'll do my best to take good care of you, like we've done for the last few months. I hope we can keep the communication lines open whenever you need it, and I'm here for you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Holloway.
Any other comments from the audience?
Thank you all.
Did you want to speak?
No.
Oh, okay, I thought you.
Yeah.
Okay, then in that case, thank you all for coming. This meeting is adjourned.